Greetings all, F-Man here. Welcome back to another steam engine overview, review, something like that video of this. This is a Jensen Model 25. Those of you who saw the review of the Jensen Model 75 may say that this looks awfully familiar because, well, it does look awfully familiar. This is not only effectively identical to the Jensen Model 75, but I have in the past had a Model 25. The only real distinguishing factor between the Model 75 and the Model 25 that you see here is this. This is an electrically heated boiler, meaning that we can abbreviate some of the operating procedures that come with one of these model steam engines because you don't have to be shoveling things into the firebox in order to create that fire to make the steam pressure because, well, there's no firebox because you have an unlimited supply of fire via electricity. It's a 400 watt heater at 3.5 amps. Yeah, 3.5 amps there on our plate we could see. 400 watts, yeah. But that's the confirmation. Model 25. That's 3.5 amps at 115 volts AC or DC. Yeah, definitely got a lot here. Earth and water, all that kind of stuff. Obviously it makes sense, but for the most part, we've seen this before. We have our same components in terms of accessories. We've got a safety valve, which is exactly the same as the one on the Model 75, a whistle, which is exactly the same as the one on the Model 75. We have the same single-cylinder engine, reversible with our Stevenson valve linkage, so this will be clockwise and this will be counterclockwise. I have already oiled the engine in terms of putting machine oil on all the working surfaces, and I've put steam oil into the cylinder. We've not fired it yet, so I don't know how it's going to work in terms of discoloration along the firebox. I have had in the past a Model 25, which did start to discolor after the first couple of firings, as it were. But obviously we're going to see how this one works. I don't know necessarily if we're going to be able to see any sort of major discoloration on this thing, but if we do, we will obviously be able to take a look and see what's going on with that. So in addition to our Jensen supplied wide mouth plastic funnel, I actually like that much better than the very small narrow neck Valesco ones, but we've got your typical bag of Jensen accessories, non-functional chimney, same as the Model 75, more of that machine oil from Jensen, which now I've got an overabundance of because I'm never going to use the oil that came with the Model 75, never mind this one. But beyond that, same thing, you've got this fake governor, which is run by this spring belt off of this dedicated governor pulley on the crankshaft. We're going to take this off for our first firing here, just because it makes a little bit more noise than it ought to, and I don't really like it that much. But beyond that, very much the same procedure in terms of filling the boiler with water. This is, once again, not isopropyl alcohol. This is distilled water now in here. So we'll fill this up. It's even more important on an electrically fired one, though, to make sure that you have got sufficient water level in this boiler because your heat is never going to taper down, which means that if you do run out of water, you're just going to burn up this boiler in a hurry. So we'll make sure that we have got enough water in there. We're about 3/4 away up the sight glass. Right there, you can see that. So that's fine. We'll remove that, cap our water supply for the moment. Put our safety valve in place. Oiled these fittings already, so it should go in somewhat easily, and it does. There you go with our whistle. Trying to get this in one-handed is a little bit more tricky, but it goes obviously. And you can see now it locks down here with the whistle exhausting 180 degrees away from us, so that's fine. So this is whistle open and this is closed. And our throttle here, same controls as the Model 75. But open and closed, and then open and closed if you want. So always 90 degrees away from us is closed, and then facing us or opposing us is open. So that's cool. We've got a reversing lever here, obviously, so this is counterclockwise and this is clockwise. I don't know which way this engine's going to want to run, more readily. So we'll see how that works. And then obviously there's no switch or anything for the heater. It's just a 120 volt 3-prong with a grounded socket there. And that's what we're going to do. So the only way to control that heater is just to plug it in and unplug it. There's no power regulator on this or anything. You could run this off of a variac or variable transformer if you want. I'm looking into getting one of those. But at the same time, it will run just the same without that. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll get this thing fired up here. Alright, so we've got you on a tripod now. We are about to plug in our heater. Let's see what we've got. Our throttle is, we'll open this, and once we get heat applied, we'll close the whistle. Alright, so we have got some heat applied here. We'll close the whistle down. We've got our regulator open for steam flow toward the cylinder. I'm expecting some discoloration and some smoke to start issuing from around the boiler. Don't see anything or smell anything yet, but again, expecting to see that in due course. There we go, we've got some smoke now coming out from around the boiler, as expected. The Model 25 that I had many years ago did the same thing on its first couple of firings, so to be expected, I would presume. Still smoking nicely. Hopefully that will start to subside. It's not particularly thick, but you know, it is obviously noticeable. Not hearing any sounds of boiling yet, but that will be coming. Starting to hear some crackling noises. Clicks as the metal's expanding. There we go, starting to hear some beginnings of boiling now. Still no real discoloration around the boiler casing, around the firebox as it were. So that's good. The dry fuel fired Jensens, they all discolor on the first firing. Definitely hearing some beginnings of boiling now. Still plenty of smoke. Cylinder is still room temperature. Safety valve is starting to fizzle. Try to disconnect our governor here, forgot to do that. There we go. The engine is purging that initial steam oil I put in. It's wanting to tick over. There we go. Coming into hydraulic lock. There we are. So she is running clockwise. Try to reverse it. And there we go. She is running in both directions. That is very good to see. Safety valve is lifting a little bit. Very nice reversing. Not seeing any appreciable steam leaks out of the boiler. The watch glass appears to be tight. That's all very good. Appears that the engine wants to run a little bit faster clockwise versus counterclockwise. Very nice reversing. Definitely better than the Model 75. Probably because the pressure is a bit more consistent here. and down. We've disconnected it from power. Very, very nice. Plenty of water in that watch glass. Let's see, will it restart? Yes. Very nice. Very, very nice. Definitely does want to run a little bit faster clockwise. And it's starting to knock a bit as well. Combination of pressure dropping, so there's a little bit less cushioning on the piston as steam is admitted and exhausted, as well as it's pretty much run out of oil at this point. And it's still quite new, so it's breaking in. So be careful with it on that front. Other than that, yeah. So far, so good. Performance is better than expected, I would say. Very encouraging. Right, so with that somewhat encouraging initial fire up, we have put some more water in the boiler, we've re-oiled the engine, and we're going to apply some heat again. We are now once again plugged in. Hopefully the smoke around the boiler casing will start to subside as whatever coatings are in there begin to burn off. But we've basically allowed this thing to return to ambient temperature, and I don't see any discoloration to pretty much any extent on this thing, which is rather interesting, I've got to say. Would have expected to see something of the sort, but it does not appear to be the case at this point, which is quite interesting. So we'll just let the boiler come back up to temperature here. We'll see if we get a recurrence of the smoke. I think we probably will, but to what extent remains to be seen. And hopefully that diminishes as we continue to use this thing more. However, I am a bit concerned about the overall longevity of the heater, simply because the last Model 25 that I had was so short-lived because it simply blew. Heater just blew. There was a big arc and a pop, and then the thing just never ran again. And tried to get in touch with Jensen about it, and they couldn't really do much for me. So it had to be disposed of, unfortunately. So I hope that this one doesn't suffer a similar fate. But for the moment, so far so good. Not seeing any smoke yet. Hopefully we won't see very much. Starting to hear the beginnings of some boiling. Fizzling around the safety valve. No smoke, that's good. Oil's starting to purge out of the exhaust. Engine wants to kick over, I think. That's quite encouraging already. A bit of help. Hydraulic lock. There it is. So far not really seeing the recurrence of the smoke. So that's good. She is still wanting to run a little bit faster clockwise. It does run slower counterclockwise for whatever reason. But it is obviously a bit louder as it runs clockwise, and if we slow it down, still get a knock there. Change our valve timing a little bit with our reversing lever, and you can get more or less, I think, a lot of that knocking has to do with the valve linkage itself, but you can still hear it, obviously. You do hear it to an extent running counterclockwise as well. Interesting. But so far no discoloration really of the firebox casing, so that's refreshing. Really no discoloration of the boiler either. It's really very interesting. How slow will it run? Not much slower than this, it appears. My Valescos, in particular the D20, can run very slowly, slower than this. That's something that will probably get better as this breaks in. But for the moment, it appears that this is what we've got in terms of our minimum continuous speed, at least counterclockwise. Can we reverse here? Yes. And again, it runs a little bit faster clockwise, and it's still knocking. I think that's someplace in the eccentric. We'll see how that develops as it wears in. Some of the oil that is coming off of the moving surfaces is quite dark, indicative of heavy wear in the initial break-in. You'd expect to see that. That makes sense to me. We have now unplugged the heater. Didn't really get any recurrence of that smoke, so that's good. All in all, I would say satisfactory thus far. that's basically all the pressure run out of the boiler. Venting the last of that through the whistle, obviously. Yeah, cool. And that's basically enough for me to consider this inert. Cool. So far so good, I gotta say. Alright, so we've continued to run on and off here, just trying to break things in. I think I've managed to get the engine to quiet down a little bit, to run a little bit more smoothly, particularly running counterclockwise, but it seems to be quieter in both directions now, so that's definitely good. We've got more water in the boiler and we are still pretty warm, so we will get some heat back into the system. So we are now plugged in once again. We should start boiling very quickly now. Start to be able to hear that. And there it is. I believe you have missed it up a little bit. Because we've got, yeah, it is exhausting pretty much straight toward the camera. That's annoying. Move you slightly up and out of the way, perhaps we'll be able to remedy that a little. Be helpful. There we go. Get some steam toward the engine. Quite a bit of a knock. It's coming from the main bearing on the crank. It is not coming from any of the con rods or the eccentric linkage, as I thought. In reverse, and that quiets down almost immediately. So running clockwise is now quieter than counterclockwise. Just little quirks to be worked out, I suppose. Safety valve is lifting. That's the thing about an electrically heated engine, it's going to maintain temperature, which means pressure is going to come up quickly and then it's going to stay there. So safety valve becomes even more important on one of these. Much smoother running clockwise. But it does use a little bit more steam, I think. Although it does run faster, so I don't know. Definitely runs a little bit slower counterclockwise. Again, not sure why that is. I messed that up myself. There's your reverse. But also, as you can probably tell along the boiler casing, no discoloration whatsoever. The smoke that we had on the initial startup is now completely subsided. So it would appear that we've knocked the new out of the heating element, so that's good. And so far so good. Again, just like the Model 75, if you happen to catch it at top or bottom dead center, it will not be self-starting upon reverse. That's to be expected. But operation is as expected. I've got no complaints. Very, very nice indeed. I've unplugged the heater again. Let it run down. Use the last of our pressure here to run it somewhat fast. There we go. Very, very nice. The safety valve has seated again. You might be able to hear some last hisses coming out of little gaps around the whistle in the safety valve. But that's cool. This boiler does hold pressure a lot better than the Model 75 because in particular this one's not leaking around the watch glass. But I also think these electrically heated boilers have a little bit more insulation around them just to protect the heater, or really to protect the boiler from any hot spots in the heater so that it's a little bit more evenly distributed through the water. But yeah, it does hold pressure a little bit longer than the Model 75, which of course is dry fuel fired. But now it is pretty much back down to ambient. We'll open the whistle here and just vent any remainder. There we go. That's full open. Yeah, that's about what we've got here. All in all, pleased. Obviously, I think the engine will have to have a little bit more running in, but for the most part, I think this thing is functioning very nicely. Again, I want to look into getting some sort of variable transformer for this thing because it really doesn't need to be running at 400 watts all the time. Honestly, putting 110, 120 volts into this is overkill, especially once everything's up to temperature. Could probably drop that down to 50, if not even less than that, and just maintain a nice running speed for this, because full power all the time, not necessary. The engine is going to run far too fast in order to utilize all of that power most efficiently. Actually, we get to the point where you're going to be damaging the engine to run it that quickly. So Variac or something of the sort would be quite useful. So definitely going to look into that. It will also be much easier on the heater, all things considered. But beyond that, that's what we've got here. Again, a lot of crossover here from the Model 75 because it is the same engine, save for its method of heating. So really nothing new to talk about there. Didn't run the governor, you know, because it's annoying, and you've seen the governor run on the Model 75 anyway. And it's exactly the same setup, so no need in my opinion. But that's what we got. Jensen Model 25 is the second Model 25 that I've ever had. First one left this earth far too prematurely because the heater blew. Hopefully that doesn't happen on this one. Otherwise, guess what? Same fate will befall this one. So hopefully that does not happen. But that's what I've got here today. Jensen Model 25. It is what it is. Refer to the Model 75 video if you got any more specific questions, because it's basically the same engine. Until next time, though, I do thank you all very much for watching. F-Man saying thanks. And of course, we will see you soon.